Hello Year 11, so the next video is going to be back to Paper 1. Paper 1 is focused on three key topics: Treaty of Versailles, League of Nations and the path to World War II. This first video is going to talk about some of the main points associated with the Treaty of Versailles. We're going to look at the lead up to the Treaty of Versailles, the actual terms and then the reactions to the Treaty of Versailles. So the Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, what did the big three countries go into the Treaty of Versailles wanting? So as we approach the talks, the big three, America, Britain and France, who are deciding on the terms of the treaty, have different aims. First thing you must remember is this was a diktat, a dictated peace. Germany had no say in the terms or the final terms of the treaty. So the aims of the big three countries: France were the most affected by the war in terms of most of the fighting had taken place in France and Belgium. France was ruined by the war and had a lot of rebuilding to do, had experienced major losses, and so France went into the talks, the leader Clemenceau, with ambitions to punish Germany. They want to get revenge, the public want revenge, Clemenceau wants revenge, wants to cripple Germany, weaken Germany, so that they will never be able to invade France again. The USA goes into these talks with a completely different perspective. They've not really been affected by the war that much, hasn't experienced as many losses by far. America as well has not been affected, knowing the fighting actually takes place in America. So America goes in with kind of like an economic perspective. Woodrow Wilson, the American president, goes in and hopes that there can be trade deals made. But one of the biggest things for Woodrow Wilson is the idea of peace. He wants world peace, and through that he has 14 points. Some of those involve countries becoming more independent, an end to many empires around the world, and principally the League of Nations, like an early day United Nations. So Woodrow Wilson goes into the talks with those ambitions. In the middle, we could say, is the UK. So we've got the harsh Clemenceau, we've got the idealist Woodrow Wilson, who wants peace. We've got the realist in Lloyd George. Lloyd George has an election coming up in Britain. He knows for the public they want revenge as well. So in public eyes, he needs to be seen to punishing Germany for the losses that Britain experienced, especially in terms of lives. However, Lloyd George is very wary of the Europe that's going to be after the war, and he wants to make sure that Germany can recover potentially, and there can be trade and better relations in the future. However, can't be seen to be doing that in the public. One of the big things that Lloyd George does want to maintain is Britain's rule of the seas. Britain had a reputation for being a powerful empire with a strong navy, and he wanted to maintain that. So then we actually get to the Treaty of Versailles. When it's signed, we can remember it by looking at LAMB, LAM, land, army, money and blame. So land terms, some key ones to remember: 13% of German land is taken away, and Germany lose all of their colonies. Two key facts to remember for land terms. You could also remember that Germany is forbidden to unite with Austria. They're forbidden to have Anschluss. We can remember A for army, so army terms. The German army is reduced to 100,000 men, which is tiny in comparison to the previous size of the army. 6 battleships, no air force. So we can look at some of the military terms there. M stands for money, so we can look at how much money Germany had to pay. The compensation to the Allies, a total of 6.6 billion. This 6.6 billion is a huge amount, much more in today's money, and it took Germany up to 2010 to pay that off. 6.6 billion, a huge amount. And blame is B. So Germany had to take the blame. They signed the War Guild clause, taking the blame for all the atrocities and all the devastation of the war. So how do countries react? Well, let's go with Germany first of all. Let's think about how Germany reacts. This is a humiliating treaty, but they have no choice. And we immediately get a negative reaction in Germany: protests, people campaigning against the government, and the Weimar Republic seems to be losing a lot of control. But the German people hated several terms. The land terms made Germany weaker, it made them humiliated. They didn't have a colony like a lot of other countries in Europe. They were so they were humiliated in that sense. There's a lack of pride. They think it's unfair. Some of these colonies are given to Britain and France. Britain and France are allowed to keep their colonies. Why should Germany lose theirs? So there's an unfairness to it as well. With army, it's a bit about vulnerability. France doesn't have reduced their army, and Germany now has got this country next to it, powerful army, and you've been reduced to a mere 100,000 men. It also loses people jobs. People are suffering as a result of this. There's a very military, a lot of military pride in Germany that is lost. Money, the money side cripples Germany, and they really do struggle. We're going to have hyperinflation in the years coming on. So these money terms is going to really make Germany suffer. And blame. It was hated. Taking the blame for everything that happened, even the losses of their own men, is a really humiliating thing to be able to sign away. So it's hated in Germany. What about the other big three countries? Because you need to know that in an exam you could get a 16 marker that asks you who is the most happy or the most unhappy with the Treaty of Versailles. In America, we have some happiness in terms of the League of Nations is established, and that's another term, sorry, of the treaty, is the League of Nations is established. But the League of Nations is set up, which is the brainchild of Woodrow Wilson. He's happy with that it's established. Some empires are split up around, Germany losing some of its empire is a good thing, and some of the other treaties that are signed after the Treaty of Versailles see other countries losing their empires as well. So he's happy with that. However, there's some big negatives. Woodrow Wilson knows that the crippling 6.6 billion means that there can't be as good trade relations, which is a big thing for Woodrow Wilson and the Republican Party, and also he knows that world peace is going to be a struggle with some of these terms. Germany are going to want revenge, and finally, the League of Nations, despite being set up, and it's great for Woodrow Wilson, America doesn't join. Congress refuses to let America join. In France, on the other hand, we can see some happiness. The public are happy that there's been a punishment. They are happy that Germany have been severely punished. They're happy there is repayment. That kind of idea of weakening Germany is achieved in many ways, and the French people and Clemenceau, the leader, is very happy. However, on the other hand, you can even say that it didn't go far enough, or French people might argue it didn't go far enough. The estimated cost of repairing France was about 200 billion francs. So the French felt that the 6.6 billion was not enough, and also they felt like Germany having 100,000 men in the army still meant they had an army, and that wasn't right. Lloyd George, on the other hand, the British Prime Minister, comes away from the treaty with a real mixed bag. He's happy that he's been able to stay the ruler of the waves, and the German Empire has been split up, and Britain is now the dominant force on the seas, but he knows that there is problems with this treaty. He knows that trade deals are going to be very difficult, and he knows that actually Germany will want revenge, and he predicts that there potentially will be a war in the future. Lloyd George is unhappy, the British public, on the other hand, are elated. So we see the Treaty of Versailles, a key thing there for the exam. You need to know those terms because you could get an 8-mark question on those, or a 16-mark question thinking what was the biggest effect, but you also need to know how people reacted.